Hi, so I'm Julie Boulton and I work at Monash Sustainable Development Institute, and one of the great projects that I get to work on is sustainable fashion. With sustainable fashion, we're talking about transitioning the textile fashion industry in Australia to a circular model of production and consumption. So what this means is that we change the way we think about and we consume products. So usually the way things go, you take, make, and dispose. It's a very linear approach. So you take natural resources or whatever it is you're making the product out of, you make it into the product, and then you dispose. You throw it away. The big difference we want people to cotton onto here with circular is that there is actually no away. We remove the away from our vocabulary and from the idea of what we're producing. So we start with what we're making and we think, well, that has to be part of this circle that goes around and around and around. We don't ever get out of the circle. We stay in the circle and we continue to reuse, reimagine, and we really value what we already have to continually make new items out of that product. We know with SDG 17 that partnerships is really critical to unlocking these huge changes that are needed, and that's something that we feel really strongly about at MSDI. And that's part of the reason why we were so committed to this project, to bring all the different stakeholders together. So it's really exciting across these videos that you're going to watch, how you'll see representatives from the industry, from people who have been working in the industry for over 20, 30 years, really detailed, in-depth knowledge of the way the system works and what needs to change. Retailers, small businesses, government, recycling sector, they're all there talking about their perspective and how they're really looking forward to the future. They can see that big changes are about to happen and they want to be involved and they want to bring all of us along on the journey also.
So what we hear time and again is the importance of collaboration between industry, academia, government and community as a way to create systemic change. So for the next 12 months, our focus is textiles. When I use the word textiles, it means clothing, footwear, carpet, soft furnishings, or industrial textiles and fabrics.
I think with the circular economy, it's a team sport. Like no one brand, no one person, no one city can do this on their own.
There's lots of amazing conversations happening, but we have to trigger action. And what would be really great from a guide like this is that actually brands come together and actually talk about how they're going to commit or put a goal in place or action something and actually set a timeline.
We can't solve this by ourselves. And the more that we have these conversations and we can identify what's missing and what help we need, then we can actually start to move forward with this.
It's not just about Australia. We have to work out who our best partners are international. So we do have this great thing happening at the moment where different countries are coming together. We're learning from, whether it's Denmark, Finland, because it's a global problem. We're not just talking about textile waste in Australia. We're talking about climate change.
And I think collaborations are getting people and organisations together. And I think the links that can be provided between organisations is where a lot of really big change will happen. So I think small, medium-sized enterprises need to be linked with large companies, with all the other kinds of companies that make up the supply chain. So I see small, medium-sized should be a massive part of this, and not just in the short term, but all the way through this transition that we're going through.
The stakeholders that I've spoken to, they want to move from talking to doing. And the idea of doing a range of different pilot projects together, areas that we can make tangible progress, a bunch of different working groups that I think CBIC can facilitate will really help to do that. So not trying to do everything at once, but starting small, failing fast, those things that we've learned about innovation as a community is just creating opportunities to trial practical things and learn from those.
Maybe all actually work through a T-shirt production and actually work out how everyone can actually produce a circular T-shirt.
It is a once-in-a-generation transformational change that we're wanting to achieve, one that involves all Victorians, including households, local government, business and industry and community organisations. The best policies, the ones that are most enduring and the ones that co-opt and involve all parts of the community. Everyone having a role to play, everyone having a stake in the outcomes and everyone being part of the solution that we're trying to resolve. It's a collaboration between a collective of designers, distributors, recyclers and researchers. Circular Stories is emblematic of the transformation we are making towards a more circular economy. This guide is a first for Australia, and I believe it will be a valuable resource for anyone, whether they be shoppers, producers, retailers, marketers and regulators who want to make a change to the way that we produce, the way that we consume and recycle textiles.
Fashion has so many alignments with the Sustainable Development Goals. When Alicia McCallion and Julie Boulton first investigated this issue, they wrote an article for the Australian Fashion Council's website. And I'll just quote from that because I think it highlights some of these connections. Alicia and Julie wrote, "The Sustainable Development Goals apply to fashion because every decision made along the product supply chain has impacts on the health of our planet, starting with the fibre selection, the manufacturing process, the packaging and distribution method, how we consume the garments, and ultimately the disposal of the item." All of those link directly to the Sustainable Development Goals like energy, climate action, circularity, and water. And so when they investigated these connections, they saw it was really important to have a guide that people could use.
The guide actually came out of a really unique collaboration of different parts of industry, small and medium businesses, and then also universities.
So about 40% of Australians don't actually know how to responsibly love, launder and donate their items. They just simply don't know. And it's not that they don't care, they're just too busy. And so there's an education gap that's there.
The data and statistics on the negative impacts on one aspect of textiles, which is clothing, is included within the guide, which is a really compelling case for the need for change. And, and I think the case study of a T-shirt is a fantastic example of, how do we shift from a linear mindset to a circular mindset?
For us, being involved in this guide is just us saying we're done with talking about this and we want to actually see some action happen, and we truly believe in the power of collaboration.
One of the key things that we need to do with this guide now is make sure we actually get it into the right people's hands. So we've created these guides, but we need to make sure that, it's starting from, students are understanding what the circular economy means.
It really is an incredible example of stakeholders in the textiles, clothing and footwear industry coming together to understand what a circular economy means.
It's time for all of us to reconsider our relationship with clothing. Textiles are too valuable to be worn once or twice and then discarded.
Unfortunately, Australians do consume an inordinate amount of textiles each year and dispose a large percentage of that. I think John reminded us we buy 28 kilos and we throw 23 kilos of that out. So as Aussies, we do have a long way to go, but I think the potential and the know-how is absolutely there for us to go and seize hold of.
When people ask me why should I care about whether I throw textiles in, clothing in my rubbish bin or take it to the op shop, and my answer always is because it's the jobs for your kids and your grandchildren and your family and friends. This is where the new jobs are, and really the opportunity for Victorian businesses and for the industry about creating through science and smarts and design.
We have high quality products within our brands, but it's actually making sure that they're designed for the lowest environmental impact all the way through. And then for that, how do we as a brand talk to our customer about our quality, the care, and then actually taking it through to that end life?
We have a really a huge opportunity to be a textiles powerhouse in the world in the future. Again, thinking about in that long term. And that's principally coming from the fact that we do produce a lot of fibre here, and very, very good fibre.
The time is now to take action on circular economy for textiles. There is an incredible groundswell, I think, amongst government, amongst business and amongst consumers to take meaningful action. And I would feel encouraged by that. And I think for brands who are wondering about, their cost structures and what their customers want, there is absolutely a growing appetite for that. And I think we'll see reward in the economy for that.
Things we can do right now is really supporting our existing manufacturers and growers, because that is capability that we do have. And as we know, a lot of that value is lost offshore. And I think refocusing and hyper-localising is going to be a big part of a just and fair transition.
We need to be really careful that we are supporting the manufacturing and the local industry that we have here now, because when those skills are lost, it's a much bigger job to try to bring them back and to try to reinvest in that all over again. So it's really, really key that we look at things like being able to spin onshore again, spin our fibers, because we are already having to send everything offshore if we want it to be spun. So things like that are really key to start bringing into the conversation. It might sound like it's at the start of the chain, but it's actually at the end, in the middle. It's a circle, right? So I just have to reiterate that it's really important that we don't forget about our local manufacturing and try to bring things as close to home as possible.
Until we can start valuing and actually knowing our supply chains properly, it's very hard for us to actually also shift to a new economy.
We have to continue to challenge ourselves to innovate all applications of design and remanufacturing if we're to go all the way. What
we've found as part of the Recycling Victoria policy is, I think for many people on the call, textiles has always been in the too hard basket, that we've always known that it's a problem, but we never were quite sure what to do about it. The industry and academia and government is up for the challenge to really start the conversation about how we can shift from a linear degenerative mindset to much more of a circular regenerative mindset, and really how we can tackle some of these really unmovable sort of problems that we've had, and knowing that the concept of fast fashion is really the antithesis of a circular economy mindset.
We're a circular fashion label innovating across the birth, life, and afterlife of clothing. So we design and create garments for a biological future while educating and collaborating with the community. Every piece that we make and every single raw material that we use is meticulously researched, tested, designed, and engineered for traceability, maximum life extension, plus the ability to easily be able to be recycled or composted at the end of its life. So really, we're designing with the end in mind, but it's kind of this full life cycle approach that requires a radical shift in thinking and how we design for clothing than what's actually the norm today.
Our recycled wool blankets are made from various textiles waste streams, such as factory floor offcuts, dead stock yarn, or post-consumer textiles waste like old woolen jumpers, which have been regenerated into new yarn. And we work with a range of heritage mills here in Australia and in Europe to weave our high-quality blankets, which are not only made from waste, but are recyclable at the end of their useful life, closing the loop. By working with wool waste and implementing a remanufacture system, we're keeping resources at their highest value for as long as possible, eliminating the need to extract virgin resources or send valuable materials to landfill, but also taking responsibility for the entire life cycle of our product. But finally, we design for longevity. So before remanufacturing is needed, which is resource intensive and in and of itself, we design products that are worth caring for and worth repairing to maximise the useful life.
If we can start to really focus on how we implement SDG 12, what does it really mean to be a responsible producer? What does it mean to be a responsible, sustainable consumer? They're the things we need to focus on. If we can start to activate that, and this guide and this work that we're doing in sustainable fashion, circular fashion, a circular model of production and consumption is one way of translating SDG 12 into action. And I'm super excited to see where this project can go in the future, because I think we've got a real opportunity here to drive home and to change the world for the better.